Wouldn't that be really cool if you could literally double the amount of money you made with your personal brand with one little small tweak? And I know that sounds super hypey, but that's exactly what I'm going to share here on this video. What's up, guys? My name is Nico Rapkulis, and I've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years. I built multiple businesses, multiple brands. I've published over 10,000 pieces of my own content. I've ran millions of dollars in ads. I've invested nearly $200,000 into my personal development, and I've thrown over 12 in-person events that have been attended by hundreds and close to even thousands of people at this point. And again, on this video, I want to walk you through the 4 steps where you can actually double the amount of money that you make with your personal branding and your content creation and your business and everything you got going on. Okay, so let's dive into this and let's not waste any time. Now, I want to share where I actually learned this story, and this came from a place where I was running paid advertising for clients when I had an agency and I was doing agency work. So where I learned this is we were running ads for a particular client, and this was the first month that we were running. And so it was drilled into my head very, very quickly. And so we were running YouTube ads at the time, and she was a fitness influencer, and she taught people how to build their fitness business online. And so we made several pieces of content, and we made several hooks. And I'm going to get into why I'm talking about hooks in specifics. But we had several different hooks. And so what we're looking at is we're looking at the numbers, which is a key component to point number two, and point number 3. But we were really looking at the numbers. And for this certain case, we were looking at the cost per lead, meaning how much was it costing for someone to not only click on the ad, but actually request information once they got to our landing page, putting in their name and their email, I think it was at the time. And so what we were doing is we were running ads and we're spending a good amount of money, and we were seeing that our ad cost was right around 12, 13. It was more about like $14, right around there, $14, $15 if I remember correctly. And so we're pretty excited about that. We're already getting a return. We're already getting clients, and that was great, right? Because people were going to the landing page, they're putting their information in, then they're watching the video, and then they were requesting to get on a call with her, and then she would close the deal. So that was awesome, and it was working profitably, right? And it was great. But I was thinking, like, how can we make this even better? How could we actually double the amount of money that we made? So what I decided to do is I decided to test one of the other hooks that we utilize. So for this example, we were going right into her story. We were going right into the testimonials that she created with some of her clients. And like I said, it was going well. It was costing around $14, $15. Right? And so then what I did is I took the same exact ad, but instead of using that same exact ad, I just made one little small tweak with the hook, and I put a question where she was basically like, instead of just going right into her story, she would ask a question. Hey, are you interested in learning how you can, build out your online fitness business? And it was like, 3 seconds maybe. And then it went into the rest of the ad. And what was interesting is that we started running that. So we started split testing it as opposed to just running that first ad that was getting $15 leads. We split tested, so we're running both of them. And so what interestingly happened is on that second ad where we added that different hook where it was just a little bit of a question-based question right before we got into the rest of the ad. And because of that, not only did we get more traffic, but we actually lowered the cost of the lead, which was the main metric that we were tracking, and it showed that we were getting $7 to $8 leads. Okay, $7 to $8 leads as opposed to the $14, $15 leads. We literally cut the lead cost in half. And so that might sound interesting, that might not sound interesting to you, but let me explain this with the rest of the points on why we actually want to focus on this. So let's come here to point number 2. Okay, we want to test and collect data. So think about this from your perspective. Now, this in particular was with advertising, okay? And you can also tailor this to your content. You can tailor this to your emails that you send, your outreach direct messages that you send out. Whatever it is, any type of communication that you have with prospective clients, think about this where you can test and collect data. And what I want you to focus on is focus on the hooks, the first 1 second, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, depending on what platform that you're on, but you want to test and collect data. I never would have known this stuff. I never would have known, we could have just started running ads and then say okay, I hope you make money. But what we did is we just started testing different things. Okay, we got some good ad cost on the first one, and that's great, and we were making money, but we're like, how can we test different ways and collect a bunch of data? Because here's the thing, I want to draw this out really quick. is like, because when I say the whole thing about, doubling the amount of money that you make with your personal brand, because that's really what this is doing. Like every time you're communicating with someone, you're building trust, you're building a relationship with someone, and that's building relationship at scale, which is exactly what personal brand is. She was building relationships with people on these ads, and then she would take them down the rest of the funnel. So let's look at this just from like an advertising component. And this is essentially like the ad, right? But there's the hook, we'll call it the hook, the body, and then the call to action. So it's basically what happens. So it's like the hook that draws people's attention, the body is what keeps people's attention, and then the CTA, the call to action, is where you get them to take the next action to go to the next thing, right? And so just think about that from any of your content, whether that's, organic content, paid advertising, any emails, any type of communication. You're always going to have a hook, a body, and a call to action. Okay, hook, body, call to action. And what's interesting is that like this part, and I made a video about this recently, I think it was on Instagram, where I was talking about, my biggest lessons after, making 10,000 pieces of content over the last 10 years is that I obsess over the hook. How can I make a little bit small of a tweak, just as I shared throughout that story, and it literally can double the business? Because think about this. Again, let's say that we're sending traffic to this site and we're getting 10,000 visitors. Okay? And then we go and it goes to that page, and then we're getting a 5% conversion rate for people booking a call, and then we'll just say 25% of those people actually become clients. Okay? So if we're sending 10,000 people there, but it's costing us, $3, we'll say $3 for each visitor to get there, boom, out's popping that money. And that's great, right? We could even run those numbers. Let's see here. Well, that would be $30,000, but times 0.05, so that's 500, and then 500 times 0.25, that's 12 and a half clients. Let's say we sell something for 5K. 12.5 times. So that's $62,000. Okay, $62,000. And let's say we're paying $3 a click. So that would be $30,000, right? So ultimately we'd be making $32,000 profit. Okay. Now imagine what would happen if we could cut that cost in half, and we only paid, as opposed to $30,000, we'll just kind of round these numbers up. So that's basically what the number we're looking at would be. We'd be making $32,000. But if we focused on the hook like I'm talking about here, and we could lower our cost per click, therefore it lowers our cost per lead, and then all those other numbers stay the same, the 5%, the 25%, look what happens immediately. We cut that cost in half, and immediately we, instead of making $32,000 profit, we made $47,000 profit, just because we focused on this guy, the hook, because then that lowered our cost per click. And these are kind of arbitrary numbers, but just imagine, like I was sharing in this story of like, we were getting $14, $15 leads, and then all of a sudden we got $7, $8 leads. That's literally cutting the cost in half, which again is adding that incredible amount of profit to the back end, because we're not spending $30,000 on ads. We're now spending $15,000 on ads, and it literally doubled the business. Literally doubled the business just because you focus on those first couple seconds, those first couple hooks. And that's really what I want to get you to understand, is that it's all about testing and collecting data. And I think about this, and we talk about all of this stuff all the time in our Authentic Influence Skool Community. It's a free Skool Community. We'd love to have you in there if this entices you. But this is what we talk about all the time, is that you want to test and collect data. And when you're building your personal brand, anytime you're having communication, it doesn't mean just an ad. It doesn't mean just an email. It doesn't mean just a piece of content. It could be a conversation that you're having. I built my brand a lot off of my podcast, and I got to learn so much just by interacting with people and having conversations and seeing how they respond. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're looking at is the message that you're putting out and how is it being received. And so when I'm having conversations, when I'm networking, I say things and I'm looking at how they receive that, how they respond to that, which then is, again, I'm testing and I'm collecting data. So that brings us to point number 3 here, is let the data drive the decisions. Okay. I think what's kind of interesting, I got all these dots on here. What's interesting, and I've fallen into this too, and I want you, a lot of the people that come into my community and watch these type of videos, they are a little bit more on the spiritual side, right? And so they can really start focusing on just how they feel within their body. And I've talked a lot about that type of stuff and how it's very integral. And that's why we focus on the Woo and Do framework. It's not just a woo-woo, got to listen to my body, but it's also not just, business, focus on numbers, yada, 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 yada. It's combining both, right? You got the woo and the do. But here's the thing: when you are running a business and you're building your personal brand, you got to let the data drive the decisions. Because think about it: if I looked at those first 2 ads that I was just talking about in the beginning of this video, and I was saying, well, that really feels much more aligned to me to run the first ad, and that feels so much better. Okay, that's great. But if you want to be paying $30,000 as opposed to $15,000 for your advertising, like, by all means. But as a business owner, as a brand builder, as a content creator and a marketer, we obviously want to maximize profit. Okay, so you want to think about this is like you want to integrate the woo and feel really good about it. And that comes down to like what we talk about all the time inside of our Vision Accelerator coaching container is you want to get clear on your vision, get clear on your values, know who you are, know what you stand for, all that great jazz. But then from there, then you want to transition more into the do, and then you want to focus on the actual numbers and looking at data. Because here's the thing, is if you don't let data drive decisions, with number 4, I'm going to switch back. So if you don't let data drive decisions, you can get stuck in this really uncomfortable spot, and I was there for a really long time, and I just learned through the process, is where you just have a hard time making decisions because you're like, I feel it into my body, I'm not really sure, right? And then you kind of second guess yourself, and you're like, oh, that didn't work, and that didn't work, and then you keep on second guessing yourself, and then you get out of a place of faith, and you're not having faith, and you're just doubting yourself a lot, and then you're looking to all these other things outside of yourself. But if you focus on, continuing to master your internal world, mastering the woo side of things, mastering your vision, your values, your identity. And again, if you want help with that, obviously hit us up, join the Skool Community. We talk all about that stuff, but master that stuff. You're continuing to master that stuff. You're never not going to, be continually working on that, but continue to focus on that more and more every single day. But then as the marketer, as the business owner, focus on the data-driven decisions. If you don't have data, then it's going to be really hard to make decisions. And I see that all the time, and I've experienced it myself as well through different phases where I just feel like I'm tuning into my body and focusing on my spiritual world more. That's amazing, but it can cause a lot of angst because you're just trying to make decisions without having anything to back up those decisions. And so when you're having trouble making decisions, please, please, please ask yourself, do I have data? Do I have enough data? Okay? Because if you here's the thing is that if more people knew about you and your business and your brand, would you be still having the same challenge? If you had 100 new people coming in and asking if they could see what you have and they're interested in your products and your services, this would be a completely different conversation as opposed to I'm not sure what to do. I don't know what my messaging is. I don't know what my offer is. Well, have you exposed it to 500 people? 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people? If not, start getting more exposure to your stuff, and the data will tell you. And again, I'm constantly testing stuff. I've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years, and I'm constantly testing. Every time I put out a message, I'm looking at the feedback. I'm looking at the data to see, okay, how do these people respond? I'm putting out this message. How do these people respond? I'm testing I want to target these type of people. How do they respond? I'm changing up the messaging. I'm changing up the vibe, the feeling of it. I'm testing out my energy, changing a lot of different things, changing one variable at a time. But I'm always seeing how do these people respond? Did I get the response that I was intending for? And if it's no, then like, okay, well, let me drive enough data and see like, okay, let's see if it actually drove. But if not, then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna change some other thing. I'm gonna make another small tweak. I'm gonna change the hook a little bit more. And again, you want to let the data drive the decisions. If you're not letting the data drive the decisions, it can be a really painful journey if you're just focusing on your internal world. Okay. So number 4, then double down on the winners. So coming back to the story that I shared at the beginning of this video, obviously we doubled down on that second one and we're like, okay, we're getting $7, $8 leads as opposed to $15 leads. Let's double down. Let's double down. Let's spend even more money on that. And then you know, if that's on the advertising perspective, if you're just more so doing content, what happens a lot of time with entrepreneurs, and especially spiritual entrepreneurs, is they find something that works and then they're like, oh, let's try something new. We all have this shiny object syndrome. Like we get bored with things and we want to go try something new. But the gold, the magic, the sauce is in just doing more and doubling down on the winners. And think about this from even your content side of things. When I find out like hooks that really work or different styles of videos, I double down on my winners. So it's interesting because I have made a lot of YouTube videos on this channel about Dr. Joe Dispenza because how much impact he's had on my life. And what's ironic is that every time I make a video about him, I seem to get a lot more views and I get a lot more exposure and I get a lot more people joining our Skool community. And we even get people that are joining our Vision Accelerator program that specifically come from videos that I've made about Dr. Joe Dispenza. Why do I keep making them? Because I'm doubling down on my winners. I've understood that I get a lot of exposure when I make content around that. So I double down on the winners. So I put that in the bank. And I have multiple other ones that are starting to come in more. But the more that you test, the more that you let the data drive the decisions, you'll continue to find more winners. You'll continue to find more hooks that are really starting to, gain traction. And when you can consistently look at the data and show you like, okay, this is what's getting us best cost per click. This is what's getting the best exposure. This is what's getting the most views. And then you just track it all the way down the funnel and you see like, okay, this percentage of people are watching this. Then you see it. You can just see it. You're very clear on that and you can make decisions from that point as opposed to like thinking about it. But then again, like I'm saying, is that you double down on your winners. So you keep on testing until you find your winners, and then you double down on your winners, and then you start continually testing different things. So as you learn all your winners, you start stacking them. You build a case file and say, hey, we're going to double down on this one. We're going to double down on this one. Let's make a new video about this every single week because it's proven to get more exposure, right? And so we keep on doing that until you're just like, you could do like probably 50%, even sometimes 70%. There's been a lot of CEOs. I've been listening to some interviews and heard some things about how like the smartest people in the world that biggest companies are always focused on the brand. And that's not always the sexiest thing. It's not the most, it's not making the money the quickest, but when you can focus on the long-term vision and continue to focus on building the relationships with your clientele at scale, that's what I talk about with personal brand, is that's when you're going to really blow things up. And you focus on that. And again, you can start focusing on the things that are working, 20% of the time when you don't have much and you're just testing a lot of things, right? But then the more that you find things that are winners, then you start doing them 30% of the time, 40% of the time, 50% of the time, 60% of the time, 70% of the time. And then you're starting to test, more so just like 30% of the time. So again, you're just kind of like whittling it down. I think about it as like you're chopping down a tree, you're whittling down a tree to find a toothpick. You start with something big, you test a lot until you find something that's a winner, and then you just double down on the winners, okay? So that's the gist of how to literally double your money with your personal brand by making one small tweak. And that is really right here is the hook, right? Is the hook. Okay. The hook can literally double the business. The hook can literally make you 2 times the amount of money. It literally can make you 5 times the money, 10 times, 20 times the money, depending on how deep you go into personal brand and really go all in on that. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more about this and you want to dive a little bit deeper with us, feel free to head on over to our free Skool community called Authentic Influence. We also have a lot of cool, powerful tools that help you reprogram your subconscious mind, get very clear on what you want, discover your vision, your values, your identity, and then actually build a plan to actually launch your personal brand that feels authentically to you. And, it's based on content, it's based on building relationships, and it just becomes a part of you. And it's one of the most time efficient and most profitable assets that you can actually build. So if you'd like to learn all about that, see how we can actually implement it for you, I also have a free video training. All these links are down in the video description. Appreciate you watching the video. Make sure and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.